Good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing today? Hmm. Where's this? Right here. Okay. So, as I was saying yesterday, our exam 3 will be next week, Friday, exactly 1 week from today. Instead of Monday 25th, it will be Friday 21st. And I'll try to post a review sheet over the weekend. The exam will be based on chapter 6 and a little bit of chapter 7. So my plan for today is to finish chapter 6, which is only one more section we have to do. And then we'll go to chapter 7. Any question? So your homework and quizzes for next week, Tuesday, is chapter 6 homework. Or everything on chapter 6, from 6.1 to 6.7. All the homework and quizzes. Question? So in our last class, we started learning about solving quadratic. So before solving, we learned how to factor, and we learned if you have two factor, you can either take out a GCF or you can do difference of perfect squares. When you have three terms, there are many choices. Either you can factor directly, or you choose AC method, or you can use trial and guess method. And when you have four terms, it's always either GCF or grouping. So in order to solve quadratic, first we factor, and then we set each factor equals 0. We solve for the variable. Okay? Any question before we begin? Great. So in order to solve anything, we want to see 0 in one side. Do you see 0 on one side on the left question? No. So what is our first step? Subtract 72 so that one side becomes 0. So we have x squared minus x minus 72 equals 0. So now you're happy because we have a 0 on one side. And how many times do you have on the left side? 3. So how do you work with 3 terms? What do you have to do with these 3 terms? Come on, guys, we did it just yesterday. What is our next step? We're gonna do that for the next one. So factor. We can factor directly because our x squared doesn't have any number in the front. Our a is 1. So can we factor these 2 terms multiplied to 72 combined to 1? Negative 9, positive 8. So negative 9 times 8 is negative 72. Negative 9 plus 8 is negative 1. So here we have product of two factor equals 0. And in order to have a product to be 0, one of them definitely has to be 0. But we don't know which one. So we said, well, maybe the first one is 0, or could be the second one is 0. We don't know which one. And then we solve for x to see what makes each of them to be 0. So to solve for x, you need to add 9 to both sides. And here you subtract 8 from both sides. So that tells us our x is 9 and x is -8. So what does that mean? It means when x is 9, the product is 0. Or when x is -8, the product is 0. Any question? So the next one has the same problem. We don't see a 0. So what is our first step? Subtract 20 so that we can see 0. So 3x squared plus 7x minus 20 equals 0. And now, since our x squared has a number in the front, so we need to use AC methods. Either normal AC method or weird AC method, anything. So here's AC method. To multiply 3 by -20, we get -60. And then we find 2 factors of 60. When you combine them, you get 7. If you can't think of that right off your head, then you need to find all the combination. So 60 is 1 and 60, but that doesn't give us 7 when you add or subtract. Then we have 2 and 30, but we still don't get 7 from 3 and 30. The next one is 3 and 10. Sorry, 3 and 20. So 3 and 20 still doesn't give us 7. Then we have 4 and 15. 4 minus 15 is not 7, so you don't get 7. Then we have 5 and 12. Do you get 7 from 5 and 12? Yes. 12 minus 5 is 7. That means we can stop here. We found our 2 factors. Now you have to decide their sign. Between 5 and 12, which one is bigger? 12. So 12 mass has to get what sign? Positive, because of the middle sign. That means our 5 has to have what sign? Negative. Because we want to get 7. So once you know your 2 factors, you split them. You use them to split the middle term. So you get minus 5x, positive 12x. Or the other way around, it doesn't matter. And then we carry down the first and last term. So 3x squared minus 20 equals 0. And then we have 2 groups, one here, one there. Jason, no fun. What do you notice in the first group? X. So you factor out the x, and what remains? 3x minus 5. And then what do you see in the second group? 4. So I put plus, because we have the plus sign here. 4. And when you factor out 4, what remains? 3x minus 5. We still have our 2 factors. So what do you observe in both factors? 3x minus 5. So we factored that out, and we have x in the first group plus 4 in the second group. And you're done with factoring. So step 1, make sure to see 0. When you see 0, then we can use factoring. between, so this is our second group. We have x here, we don't have x here. That means we cannot factor out x. The only thing we look at is the numbers, 12 and 20. Can you think of a number by which you can divide both 12 and also you can divide 20? Now we have product of two factor equals 0. That means one of them has to be 0. We don't know which one, so we said each of them to be 0. So first factor 0, or probably the second one is 0. We don't know which one. So to solve, we need to add 5 to both sides. And here we need to subtract 4 from the both sides of the equal sign. So we have 3x equals 5, x equals -4. So this is already done because it's already alone. But 3x equals 5, we are looking for x, not 3x. So how can we get rid of this 3 from the in front of x? Do you add, subtract, multiply, divide? Which one? Yesterday, I noticed a common mistake. Many of you subtracted 3. You actually cannot subtract it because between 3 and x, you don't have a plus sign. Between 3 and x, you have a multiplication, so you have to do division. So divide both sides by 3. This is too small. You got the idea, okay? So you divide both sides by 3. And then we have our x equals 5 over 3. So 2 answers. Any question? Okay, then. We have one more. Do you remember yesterday I told you something about this? Can we say x minus 3 is 5 or x plus 1 is 5? Can we? Good, you remember. We can only say either one of them is 0 only if you have a 0 on the other side, because the product of two numbers will be 0 only if one of them is 0. But here it says product of them is 5. It doesn't mean one of them is 5. So this is definitely is not acceptable. We cannot split our factors if the other side is not 0. So what is our first step? What do you have to do? In order to solve, what number we must have to have in one side? 0. So do you see 0 in one side? So what can you do so that you can see 0? Subtract 5. So we actually need to subtract 5 from both sides. So we have 0 on one side, minus 5 here. And then what can we do here? What can you do with your two factors? Multiply them. So x times x, x squared, x times plus 1, plus x, negative 3 times x, negative 3x, and negative 3 times positive 1, negative 3. And now we are happy. Our one side is 0, another side has no factors, it expanded form. But we need to collect like terms. There are no more x squared, so we keep our x squared down. And how many x's we have? 1x minus 3x. So how many x's? 1x minus 3x. So you have 3x, you moved 1x out. So it's negative 2x. And then you have negative 3 minus 5 minus 8 equals 0. And now we are very happy. We ended up getting a quadratic equation. That means we should look for factoring. Can we factor this? Which two numbers multiply to 8 combined to 2? X minus 4, x plus 2. Any questions so far? Okay. So we know product of these two factors is 0. So what do you do next? What is the next step? Either one of them has to be 0. So the first one is 0 or the second one is 0. We don't know which one, but one of them definitely has to be 0 in order to have the product to be 0. So we add 4, we subtract 2, x equals 4, x equals negative 2. So yes, in your exam on next week Friday, there are going to be at least one of these. You may have to do more, but definitely one. Any question? Was anything unclear, confusing? Anything? Nothing? Then we are going to do real life application. Actually, this link doesn't work. I used to have another YouTube channel and they terminated my channel. I don't have these videos anymore. They all disappeared. 6.7 talks about the real life problem of quadratic. When do you actually use quadratic in real life? Why do you care about solving them? We use them in many cases in our life. For example, when you talk about, let's say, something, you throw something and it makes a curve. Like, for example, when you shoot a ball, it actually makes a curvy path. So when you shoot a ball, you can ask yourself when after how many seconds of throwing the ball, it may hit the ground. So you can find that using quadratic, solving quadratic equation. Or if you have, let's say, if you have a store and you want to know what is the maximum profit you can get, and most of the time we have quadratic equation that shows us the profit function. So in order to get the maximum profit or minimum cost, we can use quadratic equation. And one thing you should always remember is that in real life, our x cannot be negative. For example, when you're solving for a triangle, if you have a length negative, it's not possible. So ignore the negative length. Or when you're solving about time, after how many seconds throwing the ball, it will hit the ground. If you have a negative time, it's not acceptable. So ignore the negative results. So see many times when you solve before, like here, in these two cases, one of them is positive, one of them is negative. So for in real life scenario, every negative answer we need to disregard and you need to work with only the positive one. Because it's real life, we don't get negative distance, negative length, negative money, negative anything. So one interesting question. The sum of a number and its square is 156. So you have a number, when you square that and add with the number, the result is 156. What is that number? It's an interesting puzzle. Can you think of a number, when you add this number with its square, the answer is 156. Can you think of a number on top of your head? 12. Let's see. So 12 plus 12 squared. So 12 squared is 144. So we have 156. Good. One of the number is 12. But is 12 the only number that when you add its square, then says 156? Can you think of any other number? We can't, right? But in reality, there are actually two numbers. So we can use our quadratic to solve this. Let's say the number is x. That means you have to add its square. So x plus its square, the result is 156. So see, we have a nice quadratic equation. So you can solve this equation, but there are two problems. One problem is our variables, they are not in order. The degree is not in order, right? So all this time we see the square power first, and then the 1 power, and then the constant. So we have a problem on the left side. Our second problem is, what do we don't see on one side? 0. So we have to do something so that you can see the 0. So how can you solve these two problems? Subtract 156 from both sides so that the right side problem gets solved. And for the left side, just rearrange them. We don't have to do any extra work. So x squared plus x minus 156 equals 0. Since it's a nice quadratic equation, so most likely we will be able to factor this. And then it comes a little bit hard work. What are the two numbers multiplied to 156 combined to 1? So if you don't know, that means you have to find all the factors. 156. It's 1 times 156. Doesn't work. 2 times 2 goes to 15. 7 times, so you get 16, goes 8 times. Doesn't work. You keep trying until, see, we know one of them is 12 because Miley was nice enough to tell us the answer. Now 12 goes to 156 how many times? Let's do the math here. 12 goes to 15 how many times? Once. So you subtract, and what is 15 minus 12? 3. We bring down our 6, so you get 36. 12 goes to 36 how many times? 3 times. So see, 12 times 13 is 106, and we have 13 minus 12 is 1. So one of them is 13, another one is 12. But what about their signs? Which one must be positive? 13. That means 12 has still what sign? Negative. So we set both of them to be 0 because we don't know which one is 0. Is to add 12 to both sides. And our answer is negative 13 and positive 12. See? And we can actually check. Negative 13 plus negative 13 squared. You can check your work. Remember, the number and its square add up to 156. So we have negative 13. What is negative 13 squared? How much is that? You have no idea? 169. So we have negative 13, positive 169. Their combination actually does give us 156. See, it works. Any question? This, so Miley was able to figure out one of them. Oh, sure. Mhm. So see, we had two. One is 12, which was easier for her to figure out. But this one was harder. It's a negative number. You can never think of negative numbers, right? We always think of positive ones. So another one is negative 13. Both of them, when you add these numbers with their squares, the answer is 156. Next question. We have a rectangle. So let's say this is the length and this is the width. The length of a rectangle is 5 centimeter less than 4 times its width. The area is 6 square centimeter. What's the dimension of the rectangle? Let's say L is the length and W is the width. They're telling us our area, which is length times width, is 6. These are the information we have. I mean, we have more, but for now, our area, which is length times width, is 6. And we are saying L represents the length, W represents the width. And then we reread our first sentence. Length is length is 5 centimeter less than 4 times width. Our goal is to write this sentence into mathematical expression. Why my line is always going left? I don't understand. Let me try writing it a little bit straight. Length is 5 centimeter less than 4 times width. Okay. Length. What symbol we are using here for length? L. Is. In math, which symbol we use for is? Equal. Good. Then we have 5 centimeter less. Anytime you have something less, do you add that or do you subtract that amount? Subtract. 5 less. So since we're going to subtract, so you should write it minus 5. And then 4 times the width. How do you write 4 times the width? What is width? What symbol we use for width? W. And 4 times width means what? 4W. Length is 5 centimeter less than 4 times width. Cool, right? You express every word in the sentence into some mathematical notation. Any questions so far? Okay, so we know our length is this, and we know our width is W. So let's go to the information they gave us. Our area is 6, right? These are what they told us. What's the formula for the area of a rectangle? Length times width. It means length times width is 6, right? But what is L? The L is 4W minus 5. Because this is what we have here. Let me change the color to something different. Green? I don't know, green. Blue. L is this entire expression. So instead of this L, we write 4W minus 5. And we still have our W, right? So we just change length into something that has W in it, make it more W. And we know this result has to be 6. Who is lost here? Anybody? Don't be shy if you want me to re-explain everything. So everybody is okay? Question? On the left? On the right? So they are telling us that our area is 6. But what is area? Area of a triangle. Length times width. And do you know what is length? Did they tell us any information about the length? They did. They said length is 5 centimeters less than 4 times width. So you do know length has an expression. So our goal is to solve this equation, but we cannot solve any equation when we have 2 different variables. So we want our equation to have only 1 variable. So we rewrite our length using our W because they gave us the information about that. Our length is in terms of W, it's 5 times less than 4 times W. So we rewrite instead of L, you rewrite the entire expression for the L. We're using substitution method. And this W, we have nothing to replace that W with, so just bring it down. And now, if you observe, this actually becomes, let's distribute so that you can see what it becomes. So when you distribute the W inside your 4W minus 5, what do you have? 4W square, and then minus 5W equals 6. Oh, what type of equation we have now? Anytime you have square power, it means what type of equation? Quadratic. And we do know how to solve quadratic equation, right? But what is our condition to solve quadratic equation? What do we must have in one side? 0. Do we have 0 in one side? What can we do to see the 0? Minus 6 from both sides of the equal sign. So we have 4W squared minus 5W minus 6 equals 0. Think of W as x. We have 4x squared minus 5x minus 6. They're same expression. So what happens next? Factor. So which factor you have to use? Direct factor or AC method? AC method. Because we do have an A this time. Anytime you have an A that is visible, you have to use AC method. So let's do the AC method here. We have 4 times negative 6, which is negative 24. Which two numbers multiply to negative 24 combined to negative 5? multiply to negative 24, combine to negative 5. Do we? Negative 8, positive 3. Great. Let me refresh your memory the shortcut SE method, the cheating SE method, okay? Because I already showed you the details previously. So cheating SE method or easy SE method. Easy SE method says don't write A, don't write C. Leave your A blank and instead of C, write SE. So we have W squared minus 5W, and instead of 6, it's negative 24 because this is AC. And then you factor. So we found the two numbers are negative 8 and positive 3. So negative 8 and positive 3. But then we have to write our A in front of both W. From here, actually, you can solve directly. We have 4W minus 8 equals 0. Or we have 4W plus 3 equals 0. What happens next? How do you solve for W from the first equation? First, you need to add the 8 to the other side. So add 8, we get, I don't have enough space. Let me actually put it here. Search. So 4W minus 8 equals 0. Or 4W plus 3 equals 0. So we need to add 8 here and subtract 3 here. 4W is 8 and 4W is negative 3. And then what do you have to do to get the W alone? Divide. Good. We need to divide both sides by 4. So that 4 cancel out. What is 8 divided by 4? 2. And here we have negative 3 over 4. Is there anything wrong with any of the solution? Good. Width or length cannot be negative. So we have to disregard this entire thing. We just wasted our time. So the rectangle they're talking about, it has a width 2 centimeter, and they also want us to find the length. Do you remember what is length in terms of width? 5 less than 4 times the width. Do we know how much is the width? 2. So it's 4 times 2 minus 5, which is 8 minus 5, which is 3. And you can verify your work check by finding the area. The area is 6, right? They told us. And we know area is length times width. So if you multiply the length and width, the answer has to be 6. Do we get that? 2 times 3 is 2 times 3, 6? Yes. That means our answer is correct. Any question? Are you guys understanding what I'm doing? Cool. If you don't understand anything, any step, please stop me. I want you to feel comfortable, not just getting the information and not understanding anything. Memona, question? Write the step. Let me write the step here. Actually, step depends on what type of question you have. So here they give us the area. So what we did, let me change the color to perfect. In first step, we decided the variable. Like length is L, width is W. So you always have to decide a variable, what variable you want to use. Next, express the information into equation. For example, they give us the information length is 5 less than 4 times the width. They gave us the information and we rewrote that into mathematical notation. So what is your equation? What information you have? Then next, what we did, since they gave us the area, so we connected that information with the area. So what can you say about the third step? Connect the equation with what? Extra information? Make a quadratic equation by combining the little info they give us. For example, they gave us length, what is length? And they gave us what is area. So we connected our length width into the area so that we have a quadratic equation. For bring all terms to one side of the equal sign, factor and solve. Right? This is what we did. First, we made our information. So we made our equation based on the information. Then we made a quadratic equation. And then to solve the quadratic equation, we brought everything to one side. We factored. We set each factor to be 0 so that you can solve each factor. This is end. The shortcut ends. Any other question? So let's see what information they have in the next example. Can I change my slides? H of t, blah, 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 represents the height above the ground of a ball thrown off the top of a tall building t seconds after being thrown. So we have a building. Which has many floors. And it's 25 feet above the ground. So a person is standing on top of a 25 feet tall building, and he decided to throw a ball up in the air. Okay. Now, this h of t is the height function of this ball. So when he throws the ball goes up, and then it comes down on the floor, on the ground, right? Anytime you throw something, first it goes up and then comes down. Did you notice that? If you haven't, make a paper ball and throw a basketball. So, like the position of the ball after 1 second is here, after 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 seconds. So the position of the ball after t seconds is given by this equation. Any questions so far? Is the scenario clear? We haven't asked any question yet. I'm just describing the scenario. The position of the ball after t seconds is given by this equation. Now they want us to find out how many seconds after throwing the ball will it hit the ground. So after how many seconds you throw the ball, it will reach the ground. The height of the ball is h of t, right? Which is this expression, right? Now, when the ball hits the ground, what's the height of that ball at that time? 0. It hits the ground, it doesn't have any height. When the ball hits the ground, the height of the ball is 0. So what is this 0? Is this t or is this h of t? H of t, because h of t is the height of the ball. And when the ball hits the ground, our height is 0. So height is 0, means h of t is 0. Because t is time, seconds, time. And h of t is the height. So if we have h of t equals negative 5t squared plus 20t plus 25, what is this h of t? 0. So they gave us one side of the equal sign. And we have a quadratic equation on the other side of the equation. So what do? It says after how many seconds? So what you're looking for, what is our goal to solve for? After how many seconds the ball hits the ground? So what are you solving for? Seconds means time, right? Time means which variable? T. So basically they want us to solve for T. So our goal, you can treat T as X. Negative 5x squared plus 20x plus 25. If you had that, how would have you solved for X? You're going to apply the same rule to solve for T. You can use the same method, but remember what did I say? Anytime you want to factor, what is your first goal? GCF. Do you see any GCF? 5. Only 5? Negative 5. So you can actually factor out a negative 5, or you can divide both sides by negative 5. If you do factor out the negative 5, what remains in our expression? T squared then minus 40 minus 5. The negative 5 we factored out. Does it have any t next to that? It doesn't. Remember, yes, I said yesterday, anytime you don't have a variable, that number is useless. So we don't want that number. So you divide both sides by negative 5. So you get 0 equals t squared minus 4t minus 5. Any questions so far? Can you solve this equation? Does it look easier or harder? Easier. So is there any way you can factor these? Two numbers multiplied to 5 combined to 4. What are they? Negative 5, positive 1. We found out two vectors. Then what do? We set each of them to be 0. Either the first one is 0 or the second one is 0. One of them definitely has to be 0 if you want the product to be 0. So what's the first t? 5. And what's the second t? Negative 1. Is there anything wrong with the solution? Which one? Negative 1. Time cannot be negative. So we just wasted our time. Our answer is only t equals 5. That means after 5 seconds of throwing your ball, it will hit the ground. So what do you think about these questions? I'm going to ask you one of these in the exam. Never mind. I thought it was they're asking for time. And we did found the time. So they need to plug. You can to verify your answer, to check your answer. But they're asking for time. Any other question? Okay, I have one more. Try this and then we'll do them together. Let me take the attendance. Can you guys read this? Let me give you the information. It says we have a quadrilateral, means you have four sides, something, and this thing. Oh, this quadrilateral has a parameter 35. Find the length of each side. What's parameter? What is parameter of anything? Do you know what parameter means? Huh? Nobody knows? The sum of all the sides. This is what parameter means. Sum of all the sides. Okay, today is 3:14. Janisha, here. Eliza, I saw him somewhere. Memuna, here. Fabricio, here. Fabricio, no fun. Sergio, here. Miley, here. Henlard, no more. Oliver, here. Himadri, absent. Oliver, what happened to you yesterday? You had your very fast absent yesterday. I was surprised. Mustafa, here. Jacqueline, here. Jiain, here. Anaya, here. Jason, here. Atsiri. Okay, thank you. Anthony, no more. Joseph, absent. Sitlali, here. Saida, here. Mohammed, absent. Ronaldo, here. Danielle, here. Jeremiah, here. Camila, here. Philia, here. Haley, absent. Jasim, absent. So what do you think about the first step? What do you do? How do you start this question? Mix all, add all the sides, and that should be equal to what? The sum of all that sides should be equal what? No, okay, let me sum them. X squared minus 2x plus 2x minus 2 plus x plus 4 plus x plus 9. So I added all the side, and this sum should be equals what? 35. Because they're telling us sum of all the sides is 35. So when you add all four sides, the result has to be 35. So that was the hardest part. Figuring out your first step. What do you have to do? Once you see your first step, the next step should be clear, right? What do you do? Combine like terms. So we don't have any more x squared. But how many x term we have? First of all, we have minus 2x plus 2x. They get vanished. And then we have one more x, one more x. So when you combine these x, what do you have? Two of them. And then we have minus 2 plus 4 plus 9. How much you get from the numbers? Huh? 4 minus 2. What is 4 minus 2? 2. And what is 2 plus 9? 11. So we have plus 11 equals 35. Are we happy? In order to solve, what do we must see? 0. Do you have 0? What can we do to see the 0? We need to subtract our 35. So minus 35 minus 35. And we have x squared plus 2x. How much? 5 minus 1 is 4. 3 minus 1 is 2. So we have minus 35 plus 11. Two different signs, obviously you have to subtract. 35 is minus, so answer has to be minus. 5 minus 1 gives us 4. 3 minus 1 gives us 2. So you have negative 24. And now you're happy. We have a nice quadratic equation. How can you solve this equation? What is our next step? Factor. Can you think of the two factors? Two numbers multiplied to 24 combined to 2. 6 and 4. How about the signs? 6 has to be plus because the middle sign is plus. Plus and minus. So we have two factors, and now we have to solve each factor. X minus 4 equals 0. So subtract 6, add 4. That gives us x is negative 6, and x is positive 4. But they said find the length of each side. So let's say I'm taking this side. If this side is x plus 4, so we have negative 6 plus 4. And what is negative 6 plus 4? Negative 2. Can we have a length with negative? So we wasted our time. X equals negative 6 is not acceptable because one side becomes unrealistic. So the only answer we have is x equals 4. So you go to each side and find out how much are there. Side 1, x squared minus 2x. So what do you have? 4 squared minus 2 times 4, right? What is 4 squared? And 2 times 4? So how much is this side? 8. So one side is 8, which is this one. Then we go to the next side. Side 2. It's 2x minus 2. So we have 2 times 4 minus 2. And what do you have? 2 times 4 is? And 8 minus 2? 6. So this side is 6. Next we go side number 3. X plus 4. So we have 4 plus 4, 8. So this side is 8. And we have the last side, x plus 9, 13. So 4 plus 9 gives us 13. So this side here is 13. And you can check your work. If we add all these numbers, the sum has to be what? 35. So if you don't have 35, that means you did something wrong. With this, we are done in section 6.7. Do you have anything more? No, we're done in chapter 6. Great. So any question in chapter 6? So remember, your homework for chapter 6, the due date is Tuesday midnight. For homework and quiz, everything. Go ahead. Huh? Review sheet, I'm going to post the review sheet over the weekend. And I also plan to hold the review class on Thursday. So remember, your next exam is next week, Friday. It will be on chapter 6, including 6.1 and 2, which is factoring. On chapter 6, the exponent rules, and a little bit of chapter 7. So on Tuesday, we are going to do chapter 7, little bit, and then that will be the exam. So have a good weekend, everyone. Be safe, be well. Don't forget to do your homework.